Michael Pregent, your thoughts, 450 extra advisors, what does it mean?
Well, what it means is this is the first effort for us to train Sunnis, and we're a year late. We should have been doing this in the summer. It was a recommended strategy in the summer to send back a cadre of Americans that have worked with the Sons of Iraq and the Sunni Awakening in the past, have good relationship with the tribal leaders, are trusted, and to stand up a force to fight ISIS. Because as you see, the Kurds are willing to fight for areas they're from. The Shia militias are willing to fight for areas they're from. The Sunnis have not been allowed to build a force, and that's the biggest problem here. This training effort, especially based on the percentage that we'll be doing the training versus the force protection, we are outsourcing the training. It's a concept that the U.S. military uses called train the trainer. So what the U.S. is going to do, they're going to train the Iraqi military to train the Sunni tribes. And what that really means is you're training a predominantly Shia force who doesn't trust the Sunnis to begin with to train tribal members that are vetted by Baghdad. And what I mean by vetted by Baghdad, it makes sense for them to vet people, but they're looking for affiliations such as relationships with a former Ba'athist, any anti-government stance in the past, any affiliation with any group that they think is dangerous will basically kick you off this list to be trained. And we saw that with the Sons of Iraq, and we saw that with the Sunni Awakening. And that's the problem we're getting into here, is this strategy will not generate the Sunni force we need to fight ISIS. In fact, it'll be intentionally delayed by this vetting process that Baghdad will insist on.
You mentioned the Awakening. Let's just explain for our viewers. When it comes to Anbar province, this does indeed look like a sequel, the U.S. having devoted manpower and money to that Sunni area of Iraq in 2006 and 2007, effectively bankrolling the so-called Sahwa or Awakening militias who turned against what was then Al-Qaeda, and those militias marginalized by Baghdad when the Americans left. What's happened, Michael, to those Awakening militias, and are they being enrolled?
Well, this is how it worked in the past. We would identify a leader, we'd give that leader a radio. Within 10 minutes, a U.S. company would arrive to provide combat power to negate the threat, or they could call in close air support. We were embedded with them. They weren't simply left out there on their own. They were able to call Americans. Well, the Maliki government viewed them as a threat, targeted key leaders, dismantled the program, and left them open to reprisal attacks by Al-Qaeda, Shia militias, ISIS, and now Shia militias again. So there's a huge trust deficit in the Sunni community for a U.S. program to arm the tribes when they've been armed in the past, and to have Baghdad work in this process. They don't trust us necessarily, and they're having a hard time trusting Baghdad, because what needs to happen is there shouldn't be a temporary arming of the Sunnis. This should be a, let's bring 30,000 pre-vetted Sunnis that have already been vetted, Sunnis that are already in the Iraqi security forces, back into the divisions that fell, and make them permanent members of the Iraqi security forces to protect, in a National Guard construct, their areas that they come from. That will work. Temporary arming of Sunnis is not going to work.
And so why isn't that option being employed?
Well, because it requires embedding Americans with the Sunni tribes. It involves special operations, it involves intelligence, and it involves an American maneuver company or a battalion to move into the area to provide force protection to the Sunni force that's in contact. This current construct to train Sunni tribes will subjugate them to predominantly Shia Iraqi security forces, and by extension to Shia PMUs, where this scenario is the one we need to avoid. Let's send the Sunni battalion forward to clear the ISIS obstacle belt, and when they come back, let's shoot them as deserters. That sounds extreme, but you have to understand the dynamic at play here. When you have Americans training Shia militia and Shia Iraqi security forces to train the very Sunnis they don't trust, you're going to end up with a dynamic that is not necessarily going to work absent American embedded advisors.
I was going to say, so listening to you, Michael, it sounds like we should have a lot more U.S. troops in Iraq.
Yeah, we need 10,000 U.S. troops in Iraq, at least. We need a combat aircraft capability. We need intelligence. We need special operators. We need force protection guys. You know, we have airborne divisions. We have special forces divisions. We have Marines. You know, Americans don't have an appetite to go back to war when they see a mom saying goodbye to their kids at an airport. But they're fully comfortable with special operators, airborne units, and Marines going to fight a terrorist organization. I think there will be an appetite once leadership in DC actually gets this right, because we're 6 months behind ISIS. We have to build something to stand in the way of ISIS moving into Western Baghdad. And at this tempo, this late in the game, you know, there's only 3,000 to 5,000 Shia militiamen standing between ISIS and Western Baghdad. And 450 new US advisors with only 50 of them being trainers is not sufficient to make this happen in the required time.
Pierre Conesa, do you agree? Do we need 10,000 US troops to defend Baghdad and retake the country from ISIS?
No, I think we are just examining the technically the problem. I mean, but what the meaning of 10,000 more American troops there? I mean, no political meaning. If we support, you know.
But you heard Michael explain that politically you can sell it to the American public.
Yes, but you know, as my experience at the Ministry of Defense drew me to the same experience, you know, when you put a finger in a crisis in which you put advisor, usually if the troop you are sustaining are losing the battle, usually your advisor are going more in the front, you know, to explain why they have been defeated. Then they ask
what
the
they
capital.
Call mission creep.
Yeah, and then they ask the capital, we are not enough. We understand how we have to do, but we need more troops. That's the step we are living now. Then, after that, you know, as the military men don't like lose a battle, they ask more. And this is a process in which, you know, to put more troops and more troops and more troops, but you lose the political goal you are aiming. Just remember that today, there is a war between Sunnis and Shias. What could do American troops in that battle? I mean, nothing. You are not the white knight, you know, going there to say, oh, those people, we are going to make a peace process.